Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, college football fans across the nation and around the world. This is Tim May with the Tim May Show. And finally, man, it seems like it's been forever, and it seems like it just happened overnight. The 20 the 2024 season is upon us. Ohio State had its opener against Akron, beat Akron 52-6, much as advertised, much as expected, but not in the way maybe as expected. But we're looking forward now to the Western Michigan game and Ohio State getting on with this season. And you recognize the man with me, my co-pilot for the entire season, unless he decides to take a break when we touch down in Hawaii. Actually, we're not flying to Hawaii, Matt Wilhelm, but Matt Wilhelm, national championship winning linebacker, NFL Super Bowl winning linebacker. Welcome to the Tim May Show.
Oh, Tim, it's great to be with you. And and my son and his team, St. Ed's, had a big win on Saturday. Actually, mostly during the first half of the Ohio State football game. So I didn't get to see that live and be as frustrated as I'm sure many fans were with, again, rolling our helmets out there and expecting everything to be so perfect week one with all these star players. But then again, went back and reviewed it, and I thought, like Ohio State always does, even when I was there as a player, you get these MAC schools, playing with a chip. You get there, they're throwing punches. They give a great effort. You're still kind of calibrating and figuring yourself out very early in the season, especially with as many players that we feel can play prominent roles for the Buckeyes. And going at halftime, make some fixes, and all of a sudden you just put the pedal to the metal and things kind of click, and you delightfully roll away with this game. Got some of the guys that you want to see developmentally, down the road on where they're at as Buckeye football players. Hopefully didn't blow too many red shirts. I know we got a few more games before that becomes a thing, but a great win. And I'm actually kind of glad that we had a little bit of adversity for these players, for these coaches, to figure things out, because again, when it's all words and hot air in an off season, you develop that we're going to be so great, it's going to be so easy. And then you actually go out and play the game, and you play through some adversity. You rely on your brothers. If there's that brotherhood, we saw that kind of come through, where no one's screaming at each other. You just kind of humbly put your head down, you take the coaching, and you go out and do it.
Yeah, I was going to say that might have been the most impressive thing that I saw on Saturday is the the demeanor of this team shown through. I mean, just like I expected, in all the offseason talk and knowing so many of these players and stuff, and then the young guys melding in, but how they did just kind of keep their head to the grindstone, and there wasn't a lot of overreacting, I guess, or acting. Let's put it that way when things didn't open real well. And I wanted to ask you this, Matt. Coming into town is Western Michigan this week and stuff. The first of three non-conference games, including there's a bye after this week, before they play Marshall and then really get into the Big Ten season. But you as a player, you touched on it a second ago, but what is the focus on a week like this from the standpoint of being, once again, a prohibitive favorite, like a 37, 38 point favorite, just like last week was 48, 49 point favorite, depending on what day you looked at the odds, which is crazy. 7 touchdowns plus the extra points. But how does a player keep his focus in a situation like this and not, to a certain extent, overlook?
Well, I think first and foremost, that the messaging coming down from the coaches to the players about that focus. And in many cases, for a school like Ohio State, preseason ranked number 2 in the country, will likely, stay the number 2 team in the country because of the decisive victory that Georgia had over Clemson. You kind of evaluate this. It's really more about self, I hate to say this, than it is the other team. And it's not to discount any opponent. And it's not, again, a situation that what I like to coin the phrase is like, you just roll your helmets out there. The Buckeye-lated helmet just rolls on the field, and the other team's just going to lay down, right?
Yeah.
We've seen that happen in other situations, maybe not necessarily against an opponent like Akron or Western Michigan or even Marshall. But some of the middle tier, lower tier Big Ten teams that have upset us in past years. But it's more about self, and as I mentioned, it's the messaging from the coaches, the fact that many of the guys who started these football games, as the season rolls on, they're going to continue to tinker with the best combination. Does that mean not Will Howard? No. Does that mean not Jeremiah Smith? No. But it could mean like run game with Travion and the Junkins kid on what they do best that they've only seen in practice that they're now actually getting to see in a game. Is one better in a zone scheme than a gap
Yeah.
scheme or a power scheme? Is one a little bit more of a stretch, one cut runner, and is one a little bit more of a downhill runner, which I believe that they are. And that's why I say that. I would also say, Jeremiah Smith, of course, put on a show, after that opening drop, but the evolution of the balance that needs to be created to feature Carnell Tate and Emeka Ibuka and Jeremiah Smith, because you kind of put them in a silo. Like Jeremiah Smith can kind of do it all. Ibuka is probably going to be more your slot guy working inside against your nickel and some of your backers and a safety. Carnell Tate will likely be outside, but at the end of the day, these first couple of opportunities against, and I'll call them inferior opponents for where we're at as, an Ohio State football program.
Yeah.
You can tinker with Jeremiah Smith in the slot and Ibuka outside and rotate, some of the tight ends, and then even flip into the other side defensively. Guys have earned through camp that opportunity to start. That these opportunities are, I hate to say it, dress rehearsals for the games that really matter, which is Big Ten ball, which is the Oregon game, which is Penn State, which is Michigan State, which is,
Iowa.
that team up north.
Yeah.
Iowa, yeah, of course. They're going to be great, and their offense is better. They're going to be great on defense. So that's really what this is. And the one other thing I want to point out, as a player and only having played professional football as well, and what's very great to see out of this football team, and I kind of made mention of it, then you kind of accentuated it, is like how they never really batted an eye. The one other thing, because of the college football landscape right now, is how money and NIL has not changed these young men from when things get hard, they don't buckle. When a little bit of adversity comes, they don't start pointing fingers, because and the reason why I say that is because money changes people. It's I got it already in the bank. I'm a starter. I'm here. It's just Akron. I've got $1 million to come back and play my senior season. But there's a hunger about this football team, and I think a lot of that has to do, regardless of what happens from a sanction standpoint against that team up north. But it's not making a Big Ten championship appearance in the last 3 seasons, not beating that team up north, and, not essentially, unless backing your way into the college football playoff, which we did a couple of years ago, without controlling your own destiny. It's like these guys have a hunger to undo a lot of things that have happened to them over the last 3 seasons, in my opinion.
Yeah. Pride, I think, is the word you're looking for there too,
Yeah.
right? I mean, there's a pride. And it was obvious to me. I mean, shoot, it was that's what's interesting about Ryan Day is now is the head coach, but has been the head coach since the 2019 season started, and I've seen Buckeye pride many times covering this team, going back eons. It seems like 41 seasons, I guess, is the number, and but like in the Rose Bowl, when they were down to Utah like several years ago, and then Jackson Smith and Jigba and C.J. Stroud put on that magnificent show, especially in the second half. I mean, they didn't want to lose that game. You know what I mean? That doesn't mean you win every game. They didn't want to lose at Michigan. People forget the Michigan game last year. The last play, Ohio State has got the ball and is driving and is only a touchdown behind. They didn't get creamed by Michigan. They were beaten by Michigan, but they didn't get creamed, and they didn't quit, even though some things went against them in that game. And so this is what's interesting to me. I mean, this was going to be the acid test, like you said, when you have some millionaires out there now, right?
Of course, and I think that's you mentioned the word pride, and as you were kind of conveying your thought, is I think there's pride that can bring on ego.
Yeah.
But for this football team, it's a pride that brings on hunger, and I think that's the difference, at least in this early onset of the football season, because they will be tested, both at home and on the road. And we know this, we're going to get everybody's best shot to knock us off our pedestal and rewrite that school's own history by doing something that we've seen happen every 4 or 5 years, it seems, sometimes when we get smooth sailing. But yeah, there's a hunger about this team. I do think watching some of the interviews with Ryan Day leading into this football game, there's a cohesion about this football team. I think, even again, just to make mention, the Jesus One t-shirts and the campus wide baptisms, really led by, some of these guys that came back to come back and eradicate some of the demons on the football field with what they have not accomplished, to come back to, again, potentially earn a nice paycheck, because that's a real thing, not to,
Yeah.
beat around that bush. But then I would also say what's extremely unique, and I say as an Ohio guy who went to Ohio State, it's like to come back and be in the environment of being on that campus and being a student at Ohio State and being a football player at Ohio State and being a steward in the community, in the Columbus area, is now what it seems like many of these, and it's being led by these seniors that have all come back to, again, exercise some of those demons. But they're as good off the field as they are on the field.
Yeah.
And, I think for us, it's just, we keep monitoring it closely, especially you and I doing this once a week,
Yeah.
to keep inching towards setting the table to undo a lot of what's been done the last 3 seasons.
All right. That's well put. I mean, that's exactly the feel I have about this football team, both on and off the field. And I'm telling you, it doesn't happen every year. Sometimes it doesn't happen every 5 years.
Yes.
This is a moment in time when all of these things come together. But like you said, all of these different elements, from Jeremiah Smith to Emeka Egbuka, you know what I mean, in the same room, coming back, but coming together for the same reason. In this modern world, it's rare, right?
It absolutely is. And I would also say it's a testament to the recruiting staff. I would say the collectives in and around the Columbus area that have supported the ability to raise those funds, the coaching staff as well, because like I said, is to be able to go out and land Will Howard, to be able to go out and land Jeremiah Smith, to go out and land, Caleb Downs, to go get the McLaughlin. You had to be, yes, we're Ohio State, but there's many other layers to being Ohio State that played a role in why they're actually wearing a Buckeye uniform and, and out there playing for us this season. So it's a testament to many people to make this a reality. And I think that, again, the same folks that write the checks, that coach these players, and the players that play, there's a lot on the line. And the expectations are extremely high. And I think, again, we got off to, a little bit slow first half, but finished the deal. And I think having been a coach and having been a player, this allows you that live game opportunity to evaluate, fix yourself, on both sides of the football, special teams as well, and go out and build against a very good Western Michigan team that, was toe to toe with what a lot of people think is an upper tier Big Ten football team in Wisconsin last weekend.
Yeah, exactly. I want to get to this. Obviously, Ohio State went into this game, and we were getting hints that Donovan Jackson wasn't going to play the game, even though Ohio State didn't make it official until 90 minutes before the game. Cody Simon caught us a little bit unawares. Not, Donovan Jackson returning preseason All-American left guard, and then Cody Simon, the Blocko jersey wearer, who's been awarded that jersey, but also the starting middle linebacker, Mike Linebacker, better put. All of a sudden, he was listed as not being able to go, and Sonny Styles started at Mike Linebacker along with C.J. Hicks, and specifically that was your major in college, was playing linebacker, Mike Linebacker. How did these guys, what you saw of them? How did these guys acquit themselves? I'm talking about the 2 linebackers from your vantage point. The 2 of the more ballyhooed, boy, wait till you see these guys really play type players that have come along in a while defensively, along with a few others on this defense. But how did they play in your opinion?
They played well. I think for a first game out, there's always going to be some nerves. It's sometimes tough in preparation for a team. Coach Moorhead, the Akron head football coach, has been, lauded throughout his entire career, prior to becoming head coach at Akron, for being an offensive guru and a great play caller. So, and we saw some of that. I think there's just some inferior talent and developmental talent on the Akron roster, where I think the defense for Akron is way ahead of the offense. Unfortunately, we'll see how that rolls out as they try to, run up the MAC the best they can. But I thought they did well. And that's the one thing that, is always very tough but you have to be prepared for as a player. And I think the staff maybe has early week conversations with you about, the health of specific players, to be ready to take reps in practice, doing something you really have never done before. And I'll say, like in Sonny Styles' case, comes in as a safety, plays as a, hybrid, nickel safety as a freshman, last year played a lot in that same role. And then he's getting tucked inside to be, the will linebacker, or I don't even know what Coach Knowles calls it in this defense, but a will linebacker where he's in, kind of like an overhang, type of player where he's like on the edge of the box and can react and make tackles in the box. But then Mike Backer's like smack dab in the middle of the defense, running, tackle to tackle, and of course, hash to hash, sideline to sideline. So it's a little bit different. You have to kind of like open your scope of vision when you're playing Mike, because there's a lot of responsibilities. And I think also that ball just hits downhill. And for a guy who went safety, hybrid safety nickel to now thumper in Mike position, which is like, call it, say, my position, James Laurinaitis position, the Tommy Eichenberg position, the Tough Borland position. It's like you were just like, inside the tackles when you're supposed to, and he's a sideline to sideline type player to begin with. So it just changes. And I think you could see, some of the like he's a great athlete, so he can make up for a slow read. But you could just see some of the slow reads, early as he's trying to get a little way about himself at that new position. But I do think, when Simon comes back, having played that Mike position will give him perspective and make him a better football player because of it. And I think, we might have talked to it, leading into this football game when we focused, briefly on the linebackers, is just like having highly touted players all ready to go out and play, because it's going to be a long season. It's an NFL type of season. And so if Simon is down or Styles is down and Hicks has got to bump over and play Mike and Reese has got to come in and play Will, it's like to have a 4-man rotation for 2 spots is a great place to be for the Ohio State Buckeyes. Is why, you go out and get these guys, recruiting class year in, year out to compete for these spots.
Hey, can I ask you a question that's popped in my brain while you were talking about that?
Sure.
I didn't play the game. I played the game, but I didn't play the game. You know what I mean? Organized way in high school or college or anything, or obviously NFL, maybe in my dreams. But as a linebacker, when you're sitting there developing, when you're the Mike linebacker and a play is developing in front of you, and it is a running play, appears to be a running play. How much do you have your eye on the actual, where is the football? You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
How
of
much
course.
are you reading? How much are you reading things that are going on in front of you from a line standpoint, or where's this potential blocker going? And how much do you actually have your eye on the football?
Well, the eye on the football doesn't happen probably I'll say if it's a run action, or it is a run, until probably the back half of the snap. Pre-snap, you're in a given call, you have keys that you're reading. If you're a Mike, it used to be the triangle when I played. Then there's a fullback on the field. It'd be through the guards to the fullback. And in today's college game, it's probably still through the guards. You'll probably have some pre-snap tendencies on the location of the tailback. Is he in the pistol? Is he, kind of like a level 2 behind the quarterback, which is like a little bit more zone-ish across the formation? Is he level with the quarterback, which is probably going to be a little bit more like jet sweep-ish, buck sweep with some, pulls. But then you are then at the snap of the football, your eyes are probably like guard, center, guard. Where are their steps? Is it down and pull? Then you're reading pullers and you're reacting to the pullers. And then at that juncture, you're then looking at the mesh. The mesh is basically, ball has been snapped to the Q. What is the Q doing, in conjunction with the tailback? Is it give? Is it downhill belly, or dive? What we used to call, in the early 2000s. Now it's belly action.
I called that when I was growing up, man. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. And so you're reading that mesh point, because now in today's game as well, it's not automatic give. It's fake give, and that quarterback can ride, and that's that mesh, where the quarterback's got the football in the belly. He can give based on his read, in system, or pull, and you still step, because you have to play your gap if it is a give, and then you kind of rock back or read out of your read, and if the Q keeps it because you've read the mesh properly, and you fall back, while you may not have the quarterback because your gap was front side where the running back went, your eyes then go back to the quarterback, and whomever is playing the quarterback, you hope is playing it properly. And then you rush over to, get down an assist. And, anytime a quarterback has the football and you have a chance to get a hit on them inside the white lines before that whistle blows, you're going to try to nail them,
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd say you're reading your keys, pre-snap, soon thereafter post-snap, and then your eyes naturally gravitate to the mesh while you're making your way to play your gap with a give to the running back.
Yeah, and all that's taking place in like a second and a half, sometimes less than that and stuff. And do you remember? Do you remember having games where you just that it was a struggle to kind of catch on to what was happening in front of you, where they were playing games with the guards in the center from the standpoint of what their action was compared to what the game was, the actual play was. But then flip side of that, do you remember having games where, boy, it just, man, the whole game, everything just kind of flowed. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, of course. And I think a lot of it has to do with your preparation, and also, in the Big Ten when I played, and I'm sure in the Big Ten now, zone read or outside zone or inside zone are almost essentially blocked the same way.
Yeah.
But then so you get into that flow and you're prepared for all those things. And of course, they're going to have runs or actions off of those too that you react to, that you've studied. Every once in a while, they'll break personality and they'll, throw in a wrinkle or two that you haven't seen. And that's where, like, reading your keys and just being a good football player, you read out of it. But every once in a while, you'll, Northwestern used to always be that team. Or some teams when they run like different traps, you don't see traps a lot. Where it just the fits change. So you've gotten a little bit of a flow playing a specific scheme or a style of football, power football, zone football, with team's personality. And then all of a sudden a coordinator comes in and a team just has a bunch of different formations or shifts and motions that just keep you thinking pre-snap. And then they start hitting you with these like, what I call it is like, they give you like a muddy look. Like if nothing is definitive, it's a little muddy. And if it's muddy, like, I want to read and go. And if it's muddy, I have to like keep popping my feet because I don't know where to go yet, and all of a sudden shit, ball carrier's on you, right now. And it's like 3 yards and he's bearing down and he's like running through your face. Now you got to get him to the ground for 5 and survive and get back in second and 5, and not have him run through your tackle.
I think they call that 3 yards and a splash of mud. I think that's, instead of 3 yards of cloud of dust.
Yeah, exactly. So, you're absolutely right. But so much of it is, your preparation. You're trying to understand the personality of the offense, of the play caller. What personnel groupings are they in, and what do they like to do? And it's, again, even coaching at the high school level. At the high school level, you're really worried about, okay, what do I do and what do we do? And then you really get good, which is kind of where we're at right now. And going into week 3, it's like, well, what do they do? So I know me, I know we, and now we can study them. And you start to understand the personality of why they do what they do. Ball in the hash, they're likely going to, run something back to the field because there's space. They're going to dash to the field. They're going to run levels to the field, so you can, you don't fall for those fakes into the boundary so much anymore. And you're ready for all those actions going back to the field. So you just get a beat for, film study and the personality of the offensive coordinator, the escape. Like the one thing we always studied and still study this day is like, where's the quarterback like to escape? Does he step up to escape? Does he escape right? Because that secondary contained, because that's the one thing that I would say collectively across, regardless of level, college, pro, high school, that's the most debilitating is you might blitz, you miss on the cue, you got great coverage on the back end, his eyes are down the field, but then he takes off and runs and get the first down with his legs. It's the most defeating, especially 3rd and 6 plus.
Yeah.
And then he takes off and makes a play with his legs. So understanding the personality of the quarterback, where does he like to escape? Does he like to keep his eyes on the field? Does he tuck it and run? Those types of things are all in film study, and again, aid you as a defensive football player to, again, not really think, just react in football games.
Yeah, I thought the Ohio State defense, as you watched them Saturday, with the exception of one time after this, but after the beginning of the game, after the first couple of series, I thought it had a pretty good bead on what Akron was up to. You understand what I'm saying? Because Joe Moorhead, like you said, Joe Moorhead, last time people saw Joe Moorhead in Ohio Stadium, he was offensive coordinator at Oregon, which ran a different look, but the same play from a different look 3 times for touchdowns, you know?
That Q run, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that
I
was
was
about
there.
as embarrassing for a defense. You
It
know,
was.
I mean, you had defenders blocking defenders, you know, he had people so messed up. And I know he had to know that too. And there was a couple times Saturday when you kind of saw that. But boy, I thought this veteran Ohio State defense shone through in the way it just adapted to what was going on in front of them. Not that Akron, I don't think I don't Akron just didn't have the personnel to continually, do some things. But from a shenanigan standpoint, Akron did give it its best try, and this I thought this veteran defense adapted pretty well. What was your take?
I agree, and I think what I take from them defensively is it wasn't even bend over break, just the discipline within the defense. To
Yeah,
your point, being veteran laden, you would expect discipline, and guys that have played a lot of football, Tyleek and JTT and
yeah,
Jack Sawyer,
league.
and I know the defense, Denzel and Lathan Ransom have played a lot of football, so it's very hard to trick some of those guys because they kind of seen it all,
Yeah,
so you're prepared for it all. And like, as I just mentioned a moment ago, is like you react a little bit faster to those things. You don't fall for some of the tricks that you've never seen before as a young player, a young starter. The one thing I take away from it, or the two things that I take away from this defensively is well, it's now three: physicality, team speed on defense, which we kind of knew on paper, given how much talent they are. Team speed is fantastic. And then what I love most, and I know it's we've kind of seen it through some of the social media stuff that Ohio State puts out, and I know fans were able to go to training camp and probably saw it firsthand, which I did not. But it kind of shined through in this game, and I think it's goes back to the testament of this roster and how unique it is, um, how much fun they have playing together.
yeah,
That matters because there's a severity to every football game that you play because you're Ohio State and you're going to get everybody's best effort. You have to be prepared. You have to be prepared for, again, that personality of the offense. You got to go out and execute. But when you go out and execute, you play physical, you play fast, and then you add that fun layer to doing it with people that you enjoy doing it with,
yeah,
and you turn it into like a little bit of a party, which I
yeah,
thought you saw in the Denzel Burke pick. You saw it in the
yeah,
Lathan Ransom touchdown. It was like, it wasn't just all about me making a play. It was we making a play, which I know we have it pretty consistently that way, but I also think there's some years where it's been a little bit more individual based,
yeah.
where I'm just doing it because I'm standing on my business. Where I'm like, now we are standing on our business and we're doing this together, which is
Yeah.
really great to see.
Interesting. Hey, one thing before we get out of here, the thing I also like Lathan Ransom when you got that caught that fumble, whatever was caused by a
Pop
couple
up,
of his
yeah, sure,
teammates and scooped and scored. But he and Caleb Downs both. It's just amazing, man, when you watch plays, how both of them end up in that final frame of the play. You know what I mean? From
yeah.
Saturday, they got themselves a couple of pretty good safeties, right?
Yeah, they do. They really do. And that's the one thing that I think we preach it at our level. I know, Coach D'Antonio, it's like it's that swarm,
Yeah,
five hats or more on the football is the swarm. And then I think also to your point about those guys is like they're coming in like, like missiles. And if they can participate in the tackle, they will. But if not, they're entering frame, which means that they're not just there's a hunger to be by the football. There's so they're ball hawks. There's no loafs. They're running the football. They could take for granted and go, oh, my guy's got him. I'm
yeah,
just gonna, jog my way over, but they're coming in humming. And I think that's a testament to the discipline that they've created. And I think that's also to the standard that Coach Knowles and this defensive staff has kind of like you know, I'm sure, Ransom's had it for some years, here with Knowles, but for Caleb Downs to be a great player and to also have a hunger to be, by the football, coming in, guns blazing, ready to like pop somebody, whether he's needed or not, is a testament to who he is as a player and then his buy-in as well into this defense.
I got it right down. Coming in humming. I like that. Coming in humming. That's a pretty good line there. Hey, last thing, what do they have to guard against now? I mean, we kind of touched on it a minute ago, but Western Michigan's coming to town. Like you said, Western Michigan put enough on video Saturday. They didn't really do a whole lot yardage wise
Right.
offensively, but they kept themselves in the game by hook or
They
crook,
did.
right? At
Yeah.
Wisconsin. Well, so is that good? As we've talked about earlier about this kind of schedule, is it good that they showed they're willing to get in to the ring, as I call it, from a boxing analogy, and fight the full fight. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. And the one word, that, kind of like your lead in, question for Ohio State, what's the battle? It's complacency.
yeah,
Complacency for this football team. And I think we have been spoiled with non-complacent, Ryan Day, non-complacent quarterbacks in Justin Fields and CJ Stroud, who in situations like this, once they get a bearing for their role and as I talked about in our open, like the flow with the receivers, with where they're at, what routes they run best, and we start tinkering with what we do. By week 3, week 4, we're rolling. I would not be surprised to see Will Howard throw for 405 touchdowns in games like this, and still have Travion Henderson and Junkins get their yards on the ground, but or flip flop. They run for 300 and we throw for 250, and really start rolling. And it's not even like you're doing it because you're just firing on all cylinders and because you have great players. It's not an indictment against the opponent. It's just like,
right.
I'd say like we're just that good, and we're really just, we're just firing on all cylinders, and we're just, the personality of our players are accentuated by the play calling, and they're just executing at extremely high level. And I think again, we've been spoiled by, what CJ Stroud represented at quarterback, and Dwayne Haskins throwing for 405 touchdowns, 5 times a year. Like that is something that I think this offense is capable of doing. And it would not be surprised. I'm not necessarily saying it's going to happen next week. There's steps that we want to take as an offense and as a defense. But then I think the Marshall game and some of those early Big Ten opponents that we were just going to hit and could explode to show the nation and our fan base and, the world how great we are. And then I think, it really just continues to legitimize where we're going to be and what we hope is going to happen at the end of our season in our last regular season game and into the college football playoff, which means we're going to have to play, be capable of those things against top 12 teams in the country.
Hey, last thing real quick. What was your take on Will Howard? Just the look he gave, the leadership he gave, what was just your take on, not necessarily statistically, but how he looked? You understand what I'm saying?
Of course. Yeah. Like the moxie and the presence. I think well, the one thing that jumps out to me is I see I think he realizes that I'm not in, I hate to say it like the Wizard, I'm not in Kansas anymore. It's like Kansas State, you can, win 8 or 9 games and, potentially play for a conference championship in a bad conference in the country, and then likely go to a January 1 bowl game, win or lose, and then go home. You're never like your season's not teetering each and every game you play. So there's this, that business that he's taken by becoming the quarterback at the Ohio State. That severity is something that I saw from his play. I think that what I loved about him, which is kind of like, it's kind of flip flop. Usually, and maybe it's the Cal McCord ingrained in my brain. It's like, the underneath stuff was what he was best at. Throwing the football down the field is where he kind of struggled. And so Will coming at week 1 and actually, I think it was 7 for 10, with plays of 15 yards or more, was where he was best. And the little underneath stuff, some of the the flare, the backwards pass to Travion, and the little things like that that we didn't quite master yet, has a lot to do with just not playing with these guys in live game scenarios enough yet. And so I think that will get fixed. And then, I mean, I love it. And I think it's great. It's identifying how immensely talented Jeremiah Smith is, both for Ryan Day and Will Howard. And essentially, I don't say force feeding him, but like giving him those opportunities to just be the best receiver on the field. And not feeling like you need to be super balanced and make everybody happy. It's like, get our best player of the football field. It's the equivalent to Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson and Tyreek Hill. It's like, get your best player of the football, attempt it 10 times a game, and he's going to have 6 to 8 receptions for 100 and some yards and multiple touchdowns in the red zone. And I was happy to see that.
As they say in a singing group, give the best singer the microphone, man.
Yes. Yeah.
Let the dude sing.
Yes.
Hey, speaking of that, man, I appreciate you, Matt. You know that,
My
man.
pleasure.
This is extremely well done. And I'm looking forward to see how this team progresses because, it's funny how 52-6, and it was sort of like, not spectacular, but it was, if you
Yeah.
look, I mean, Jeremiah Smith did some spectacular thing. Emeka Egbuka got robbed of a touchdown catch when he got his hand down. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know what the official was looking at about the ball was moving. It's like he had the ball, and I mean, just that was he was robbed from a highlight.
But the great thing about this football team is we are so immensely talented that we don't have to just like keep beating ourselves up about that one play we didn't make,
exactly,
because we have so many opportunities and so many playmakers to go like, okay, fine, all right, it's not a catch, we'll just go score and throw it to somebody different, we'll just go right back to the huddle and kind of like reload it and do it again.
Yeah, as Ryan Day said in Indy, and I've followed through with this. I mean, his mantra for the year, if he had one, he didn't really put it up in like words and stuff in the Woody and stuff, but is leave no doubt. And they left no doubt after the first game. Yeah, there are things to work on, but they left no doubt that they were by far the superior team, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the one thing that I am like the way that the season is playing out that's very intriguing for me is the fact that we have Iowa, which is going to be a tough test. They're going to be a great defense. They're going to be better on offense. But then I also think, with the Jonathan Smith-led Michigan State football program, like, is it going to be a finished product in year one for the head football coach? No. But they're going to have talent. They're going to have speed. They're going to have size. They're going to want to run the football. And those two kind of back to back leading into that trip out to Oregon.
Yeah.
Because you're going to see speed. You're going to see talent. You're going to see size. You're going to see, speed in and out of the huddle. What Oregon does very, very well.
And you're going to have to do a road trip to Michigan State also.
Absolutely. So yes, exactly. Being on the road, getting off of your home turf at least one time against a unique opponent.
Yeah.
And then also with what Iowa represents in the Big Ten, their top 25 football team, well coached, hyper disciplined, great defense. To see Will Howard and these receivers and our two running backs and our offensive line protect and open up holes for those guys. I think it's, and I'm not taking anything for granted. I'm not rolling my helmet out there. I'm not that guy. We got to go play those games. But I think they're the right challenges in front of us, pointing to the game that everybody's pointing to, at least early in the football season, which is Ohio State at Oregon.
Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm pointing to just getting things done for next week with my friend Matt Wilhelm. Matt, once again, man, you're a regular member of the Tim May Show now, regular member of the cast. I'm starting to call it more of a show now instead of an airplane. I like the cockpit, getting to share the controls with the co-pilot, but this is more fun. The give and take is what I appreciate. And boy, until next week, Matt, what do you think?
My pleasure. I think go Bucks, and we build against another really, really good opponent. And I just want to see some of those things that we didn't do so well, or our ability to run out of that tunnel and play really, really good football earlier in a football game is probably the one thing I'm going to have my eye on most.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's Matt Wilhelm, and yours truly, Tim May. Until next week, we'll see you then.